Hey everybody, Mike here. Welcome back to the channel. Well, today, as you can see, we're going to be talking about honey, right? Now, if you're into self-reliance, then you understand that self-reliance also means you rely on your health, and that's pretty critical, okay? So that's what we're going to be talking about. Okay, so before we dive into today's video, I want to say thank you to Honingpunten. They gave me this honey, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to enjoy that. Lekker Honing means delicious honey, and that's a company here in the Netherlands, and they sell honey, obviously, through beekeepers that are located in the Netherlands, but also in many other countries. And I know for sure that they are legit, they are the real deal, they deliver delicious honey, and that's why it's standing on my table right now, okay? Right, on with the video. Alright, so you probably know that there are different types of honey, right? And a lot of people will ask, okay, so where do I get this honey and that honey? Now, keep in mind that honey is usually a regional product. The way honey is made is bees go from a beehive, they visit flowers, they collect nectar, they turn that nectar into honey in the hive, and it's taken out by the beekeeper and it's sold as honey, right? That's basically how that works. Now, the thing is though, where do the bees get their nectar from? What flowers are in the neighborhood, right? Do they have to go far? Is it nearby? Is it all one type of flower? Is it a mix? That kind of thing. So you might have honey in your region that is not really available in someone else's region. So it's very hard to explain what kind of types there are because there are tons and tons and tons. Now that said, there are three categories that you need to be aware of. First of all, raw honey. What does raw honey mean? Raw honey means that it's completely unprocessed. It's straight out of the beehive, right? So you can have the honeycomb, you can have honey, and it's kind of something like this right here, right? This is honeycomb honey, and a lot of people will ask, what about the honeycomb? Can you actually eat that? Yes, you can. You can eat that 100%. The taste might not be for everyone, but it's super, super healthy because it's 100% pure, right? Now, when it comes to health benefits for honey, keep this in mind. Bees visit plants, right? Now, the plants can't run in case of danger, same like trees and other plants, right? They can't run off, and they also have to be their own medicine man, if you will. So plants and so forth, they have, let's say, ingredients, if you will, right? They got certain substances in their fiber that allows them to protect themselves, but also to make themselves better. Now, that second category, that's where you get the antioxidants, you get the minerals and so forth to keep them healthy. And that's basically, you know, what herbalism is. It's the knowledge of all of that, right? Now, when you have raw honey, it's as pure as it can be. So it's super, super healthy. And the additional benefit is that you, of course, have fibers as well. Now, the honeycomb itself is made from honey, right? And there's also a little bit of beeswax in there. Can you eat that? Yes, you can, right? And that's why I got that right here. Okay, so that's raw honey. So what else? Well, you also have pure honey and you also have organic honey, okay? Now, when it comes to pure honey, these three, they're all pure. Now, what does that mean? Pure means that there's nothing added to it, right? Now, you're probably thinking, what do you mean added to it? Well, if you go into a supermarket, then chances are that you find a jar of honey that is very, very cheap, right? Now, how is that possible? Making honey, as in the bees making the honey, and getting that honey into a jar and selling that, that's a very labor-intensive process. So how can that be so cheap? Well, in certain countries, they will add all sorts of things to the honey to get more volume and to be able to sell it faster and therefore cheaper, right? That's why it's so important that you make sure that whatever honey you buy is pure, meaning nothing added to it. Now, there's even a scenario where if you have countries with a very, very brief summer or spring, a very limited number of flowers, or let's say heavy pollution in the air, water and whatnot, You could have a beehive where the beekeeper is feeding, as the majority of their food source, feeding them sugar, water, right? Now, you will eventually get honey, but you could question yourself, what about the health benefits? Because there's little nectar in there, right? And the majority is sugar water. So that's why it's important that you know that the source of the honey is legit, right? So this would be considered pure honey, nothing added to it. So it's been cleaned, it's been filtered, but there's nothing added to it. Now the third category is organic honey. Organic honey is related to where it has been made. And when I say where, I mean the vicinity of the beehive. Now, let's say a bee has kind of a range of about 3 kilometers, right, where they collect nectar. Now, in some countries, there's legislation that will determine whether you can call your honey organic or not. Let's say the beehive is in an area where 2 kilometers from the beehive, there's heavy industry, right? Or there's maybe agriculture and they're using pesticides. Now, chances are that that will end up in the honey, and that's not what you want, right? Now, if you can prove that the bees are collecting nectar in an area where there's none of that pollution, then you might earn that label organic, right? Now, this is different per country. I live in the Netherlands, and that's where lekker honing is as well. I live in the Netherlands, and if you go to the supermarket to buy honey, you might find honey from countries where they don't have that legislation. They can put whatever they want on the label, and it will be sold here as organic honey, which it isn't. So that's why it's critically important for you to understand where the honey is coming from, okay? So how do you determine the quality of the honey? Well, obviously there are a couple of ways to do this, right? I mean, looking at it won't tell you that much. I mean, sure, you can see whether there are impurities in there or not, but it just might be raw honey. You don't know, right? So it's important, first of all, if you decide to buy your honey in a supermarket, regardless, right? Make sure you read the entire label to find out, where it's from, where it's made, and so forth and so on. I wouldn't say you should never buy in a supermarket, but if you can afford to, I would say stay away from that, right? And even when you go to local markets, you might find somebody selling organic honey or pure honey. Unfortunately, like a lot of things in the world, people will buy cheap honey in the supermarket, put it in jars and call it man-made, or you know what I mean, organic, raw, and so forth. So even then, try to determine who is the beekeeper, what is the reputation of the beekeeper, how many bees are there, what is their area, what do they work in. Now you're probably thinking, well, that's a whole lot of research for a little bit of honey. It's worth it, right? Because once you establish that, you have a source basically for a long time. All right, so where can you get good honey, or proper honey, or pure honey, or healthy honey? You know what I mean, right? Now, like I said, do your research, do your homework, and if you can, go to the local beekeeper. They're usually organizations, and beekeepers will be part of that organization. So I would say if you spend a half an hour on Google, you would know exactly where in your area you can get honey, what the name of the beekeeper is. More often than not, you could actually even go and visit that beekeeper if you like. I would, give them a call and ask if that's okay. And they will tell you a little bit about their process and how their honey is made, and because they're usually very proud of that process, right? So definitely check that out, and you will be pretty sure that the honey that you are buying is legit. Now, as far as the farmer markets are concerned, I just gave you an example of somebody being fake. Well, luckily that's a very, very small minority. Most people selling honey on markets like that, they are 100% honest, right? Just keep that in mind. So, and it's also a good thing if you care about the environment, right? Buy local and buy from small mom and pop stores, if you know what I mean. Okay, so why not buy through supermarkets? Well, I already gave you a couple of reasons why, but one other thing that you need to consider is this. If you heat honey to temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius, or that's about 104 degrees F, right, then you lose a lot of beneficial properties. Now, that would not be a good thing, right? In most countries, the only thing that you have to do if you're selling honey, let's say on a market, is you have to put on an expiry date, which is kind of odd because you can store honey for a very, very long time. There are even stories of honey being found in the pyramids that was over 3,000 years old and it could still be consumed, right? So honey has the properties to stay good. The only thing that can happen though, well actually two things that can happen with honey, and that's basically how you should store it, right? Honey can oxidize, which sounds weird, but basically honey could rust and go bad. Right, one other thing to consider when it comes to keeping honey good is you shouldn't heat it. Now, sometimes when you buy honey in a supermarket, you will find jars that have been heated to over 40 degrees centigrade or 140 degrees Fahrenheit, right? It's still edible. Problem is though that you will lose a lot of the properties that are pretty important. Now, you're probably wondering, well, people heat honey all the time because eventually honey will crystallize, right? And then you put it in a boiling pot of water to make it liquid again. Well, you should never boil a pot of water to make it liquid again. You can warm up water and give it some time and it will become liquid again, right? But all honey crystallizes. Now, you can ask yourself, can I still eat it then? Yes, absolutely. I mean, you could dice it and slice it and eat it, no problem at all, right? But if you want to have the liquid honey, then you would warm it up a temperature below 40 degrees Celsius, right? And give it time and it will become liquid again. Okay, so let's have a look at the honey that I got in front of me, right? So this one right here is Spanish flower honey, okay? Now I tried it and this has a very, very strong taste. It's spicy, not as in herb spicy, but it's strong, right? It smells strong, it tastes strong. And if you're into that, then great. This is awesome if you want to put it in your tea, right? And you can use it when you're preparing desserts, that kind of thing. I love a little bit of a strong taste, but I guess it's personal, right? It's kind of like some people like whiskey, some people don't. I actually do, so, right? Now, this one is from Holland. So this is Dutch flower honey, right? Now, there's a slight difference in color. You might not see that on camera, but the one from Spain is a bit darker, okay? And there are a couple of reasons for that, or there could be a couple of reasons for that, all right? Keep in mind that when this honey is made, this might be in a period of the year, let's say in the spring, right? Where there are a lot of flowers in a very, very sunny environment. Or it's been collected over a much shorter time in a country where there's way less sun, like Holland, or the Netherlands, I should say, right? So that can have an impact. Right, so finally this one, heidehoning. Now heide, translated in English, is heath, right? And heath isn't around all year. Now flowers aren't either, but heath especially. In the Netherlands, heath grows somewhere in the range from, let's say, 1st of August to mid-September. So let's say about 6 weeks. And in those 6 weeks, beekeepers will put their hives in that region. The bees will collect the nectar and they'll start making honey, right? Now, 6 weeks is not a long time, so the honey made from heath is limited in quantity. So it's kind of harder to get, if you know what I mean, right? But it's a very delicious. You can see a very distinct difference in what it looks like. And that's also due to how it's processed, right? So it's not processed in any negative way, it's just a little bit more labor intensive, and again that adds to the cost. So when it comes to honey, it's very much about personal taste, right? But the most important thing is that it ticks the boxes for you when it comes to what you like about honey and you know, what is important to you. I mean, if you want to go for the absolute raw variant, right? So not touched by man, not filtered, nothing. I mean, you could literally, not in this case, but sometimes when it comes to honeycomb honey, you can even find like bee legs and you know, little chips of stuff in there and whatnot. This is absolutely clean, trust me, right? So yeah, that's all I wanted to share with you about honey. If you want to be self-reliant and you want to depend on your own body and your own skills, then your health is super important, right? For me, honey is not only very healthy, but it's also very, very delicious. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I'll put a link below to the website of Lekker Honing. Thanks again, guys, for sending it over, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.